everybody. Welcome to the final class. Wow, that came out really loud. The final class. I'm going to speak much quieter now. I have learned my lesson. The final class on sharing and publishing. And today we have with us Notching Tikasa, which you all know because you're well familiar with Notching. She has been the one that kept us all wrangled, or we would be strangled. So we've been on our best behavior. And yeah, that's it. And we have the corpse to talk about tonight. And Jamal is out in chat for some reason. Get back in the studio, Jamal. And Pixie's here. And Tom. And we are going to read the Exquisite Corpse. We're all going to read the Exquisite Corpse at the end of this. So you guys have to hang out. Sorry. But today we're talking about, but it's the last class. You guys are almost free. So today we are going to talk about everybody's favorite topic, which is publishing and sharing. Like, what can you do with your poetry? How can you get it out there? I did send the link as one way. You can come and I will record you in this studio, not this exact studio because this is going to disappear, but a studio very much like this. And I can share it on YouTube or give you the video to do something else with. So let's start with that. How do you guys share your work? How do you get yourselves out there as poets? Anybody? Wow, I'm just so excited for this one. This is like going to be great all of a sudden.
Well, I kind of harass and stalk people, but legally. So,
is that legal by your definition, or
he's got his poetic license?
The laws that I created in my own mind, in my own belief, but no, I think a lot of it is asking for what you want, you know what I'm saying, from people, finding out what's going on. It's good to have mentors. I keep on stressing mentors because Linda's done so much for me and Lee's done so much for me, and some of these people, like, they send me things that, hey, here's a contest, here's something you should enter, here's a submission, things like that, and then my own research. But even with my own research, sometimes when you first starting out, you don't know even where to look. So having a mentor that can kind of like guide you to places of where to look and kind of just jumping on every opportunity, like how you've been keep on telling them, Angela, space and time, space and time, space and time. I'm wondering if everybody should be bombarding Angela with space, sending your stuff to space and time, at least. Please. And then if you get on putting that, some other people might like you, and it becomes like a chain reaction that kind of like spreads out. I'm just talking about like how I did it, grassroots, submitting to Crystal Lake, submitting to any program. Like, so if you see somebody, like, let's say you see Max is always publishing something, right? So if you see him, look at where he's publishing his stuff, and you could be like, oh, I didn't know about that publisher, let me send my stuff there. Or other writers that you like or respect, stalk people, watch them, watch their movements.
Don't do everything that Jamal says, but a lot of it's really good advice, but some of it will get you in trouble.
Like a stalking people.
Within moderation,
somebody's window and read your poem.
I did say a couple weeks ago, I said about, like, if you pin your loved ones in a shower, though, you have a captive audience to read your poetry.
That's true, but you're just stalking your husband, so that's sort of
that's legal.
Yeah. Submit. But some of the places that I use are Submission Grinder, which is free. Awesome. You can track your items. You can enter stuff in. You can search. You can search for fiction. You can search by genre and subgenre. You can search for poetry. Also, Submission Grinder has, when you click on its title, there's 3 sections on the home page. So there's recent activity if you're signed in. So that's kind of like who's been rejected and accepted. He kind of lists that. There's my market response, so that's where you submitted. But there's also recently added markets, which is a tab that I often go to. And it lists markets that have just been added to Submission Grinder, if they pay, what they pay. And I'll go, oh, look, there's one that's poetry, and they pay $25 a poem. Let's see what that's about. So I do that. I also do, well, as a member of SFPA, plug that. Monthly, one of our students here, Michael Payne, actually gathers up where everybody has published their works. And if you send it to him, and then he posts that to the membership, and it lists the poems that somebody's published for the last month and the links. So you can always go and read the poem, and you can look at the market. So it's a good place to kind of see where are people actually submitting stuff. Those are two of the places I use. I also subscribe to Horror Tree. And I hear there's this other great market report called Opportunities.
Yeah, I've heard of them.
So all these places, it's great to subscribe to a few of these things and get these market reports and check them out. And submit.
I guess for me, a lot of the stuff that everyone's already said, markets, make sure you're always submitting, which I have not been these last few months, but it's a whole other story. But also being strategic about where you're submitting. It's great to just submit and just get published everywhere. But I'm always particular about where I'm submitting stuff. Unless it's an invitation, but that's another story, I suppose. But yeah, just, and it's okay to be picky about where you want your poems to go to, because they're your poems. And if you want them in I mean, obviously, sometimes we don't have a choice, but if you want to aim for a particular market, then you can try for that particular market. But be strategic about the markets that you're going to and where you want your approach.
Good advice. I'm going to say, echoing all of that, of course, but also how important it is to look at where other people are publishing, your peers. That is actually how I wound up with Space and Time. I decided to go start publishing wide instead of just publishing in the circles that I was publishing in. And so I looked and I was like, Christina Singh is my friend. So where has she been published lately? Oh, this place called Space and Time. All right, I'll submit there. And then I went and there was a message from Hildy about how it was closing and if there was anybody that could publish. So, and long story short, I wound up with it. So you never know what you'll wind up with if you are doing that by networking, paying attention to what's going on in the markets and your friends, where people are publishing. I realized that I did not properly introduce Notching because everybody here does know her. But Notching, I should have given you a chance to say something. It's so good to see you. I got to let in there with, the usual mayhem.
Oh, that's okay. I was just thinking that, as you know, I'm doing I am the person who you talk to and just publishing with the talent. So I'll be talking with all the authors and all of you and getting you ready for the anthology to be published. But my way I was published was I did the Horror Writers Association showcase. Being a member of the Horror Writers Association is a wonderful way to get published, and you get paid $10. Next year it'll be Max. He'll be the one choosing the poems. So I encourage all of you to join the HWA and try submitting for that. And also, don't be afraid of being rejected or having imposter syndrome about your work. You start at the top and you keep going, change. And if your work does not get accepted, change it and send it back out. Don't let them stop you. Don't let yourself stop you. So don't let rejection stop you. It's part of being a writer. It's part of being a poet. So
even your friends, right? Because your friends will still reject your work, just so you know.
only me. Only me.
Don't think that because they like you, they're not going to reject your work. They definitely will.
That's friends have rejected me.
So All right, this is going to be an interesting workshop. I can see already. With my next question, with all the digital platforms available like blogs, social media, e-publishing, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, poetry, which I guess that'd be X poetry. Is that X-rated poetry now? Then there's all these different ways to get your work out there. What are some of the ways, kind of non-conventional, besides just submitting, that you guys have gotten your work out there? I know all of us have done weird things with poetry.
Performance poetry. I have dressed up in costumes. I've shook bones at people. I've thrown chocolate bars at people, and done a performance. I was thinking if I could get my shoot together for next year's StokerCon, maybe I could do something there. But that's the other thing. Volunteer for readings. That's kind of normal, but volunteer and read even if you're nervous. Anyways, yes, I have done performance poetry. I haven't done any in a long time, so maybe I should oil those rusty gears.
I agree.
I've done like poetry, like films, I guess you would say, where I kind of took a poem and interpreted it through a different medium, but then that brought a lot of attention to the poem as well, or the collection that the poem's in. I did one with Linda Addison, Morning Meal, based off her poem Morning Meal. Um, that even as the screenplay brought so much attention to the poem as well, and to
I'm
her book.
horribly jealous of that whole thing, by the way. I'm just going to tell you right now. But it was wonderful.
No, and then like I think even like doing readings with some imagery and putting it out there, using like the other mediums that's out there, it's really like it's really good. I mean, you get a lot of attention to your work or to your words, and it's just another way of doing it that's gotten me
Mhm.
some sort of attention, you know.
Yeah,
So
I
that's
like that you put it in another medium, because people who think they don't like poetry get a chance to be confronted with poetry, and
hmm
then they can decide that, oh, maybe they do like it. It's not all like,
yeah,
ancient
yeah,
stuff, Shakespearean and sonnets. It's not all sonnets. It should be other
yeah.
things.
Goddamn sonnets.
And
Um,
I'm not promoting like AI or anything like that. I don't believe in that, but I do think there's other
I'm
technologies
an
or
AI.
images
I'm an
that you
AI.
can.
I
I
am.
knew it. I
I'm an
knew
AI.
it. I do think there's other like mediums that you can use, different ways you can use poetry with imagery, or with some of the modern technologies, to kind of just modernize it a little bit, or spoon feed it to people who might not be normally inclined to take a look at the medium.
I actually forgot a long time ago. Rhea Rose, who is also one of the students here, and I were at a local convention where, of course, they put the poetry panel early in the morning. So, people, cons don't go to morning events, and people don't go to things that say poetry. Good God. So we went, well, actually, it wasn't quite early morning because we went to the bar and we left a sign on the board in the room that said Snow White and Rose Red are in the bar having a drink. And then we went and discussed how can you get people engaged in poetry? And we ended up doing a Fringe Festival play, which I don't know if you guys have Fringe Festivals in the US, but they're kind of off Broadway types of plays that people can put together. It's across Canada. I think it started in, I want to say Scotland. I think it started in the UK. But we wrote a play based on a modern princess and a fairy tale princess, and it was threaded together with poetry, with
Oh,
some
wow.
dialogue. And it was an hour long. We did costumes, we danced, we did everything. It was a very big learning experience. We actually made back the money we invested, with probably enough for a dinner. But that was a very unusual way of doing it. And I remember seeing another woman I knew way back in the day. She did this half-hour performance of this kind of Frankenstein poem where she twisted around as she recited her poem on stage. It was very powerful. So those are some things to consider.
Very cool. Anybody have anything to add to that?
I did a strange thing for poetry. Well, I sent in a line for a corpse poem because I wanted some dirt from Edgar Allan Poe's grave.
Oh yes.
And I got it from Angela.
I was gonna say, didn't I send you dirt?
Yes.
That's so
crazy.
cool. That
And
is so funny.
I did that line just so I could get that dirt.
That is so funny. Well, it was an excellent line. Well, you paid for your dirt. But yes, yeah, a little bit of backstory on that. That is every year I used to go to Edgar Allan Poe's grave, and sustainably, because I would always ask him if I could have this dirt from his grave, which isn't actually where the monument is. You have to actually go hunt it down back in the grave. The monument is just like I don't know, to divert people from stealing his dirt. But I did ask, and I would always leave dirt as well. I'd bring some dirt, like a little baggie of dirt from somewhere else, and I would leave the dirt. And then it becomes Edgar Allan Poe dirt by,
Default.
yeah, by proximity. Yeah, I forgot all about that notching. That's funny. And then I made them into little necklaces. I think I called them rider charms, and then I was sending those out and stuff.
Of course you did.
Sustainably harvest. I still have a piece of his
Finger bone?
No, I was gonna say grave. Like that was just there. It wasn't. I didn't pry it loose or anything, but it was just a stone that looked like it might have been part of a tombstone. I should stop talking now.
That's like
here's something from
deliciously
Jamal in the comments.
Deliciously morbid, right there.
How about you, Max? Have you done anything weird with poetry? Well,
I think him being
I'm
part
sorry,
of this group with
inspiring.
us. I think that's what he's done that's weird. Being with us.
I mean, not. I guess not with any other medium. I suppose. I don't know. I mean, nothing I can think of.
Well, you
Even, like,
kind of
reading.
invented a certain, not a style, but I think you kind of maybe pushed a medium in a way that I don't think anybody else has done. You know what I'm saying? In a way,
The
I
prose
don't know
the prose
about that.
poems.
Yeah, but how he's done prose poetry or pushed it his own way, nobody. It's very unique to
Yes.
him.
I mean, I guess I like getting into anthologies, like, I've marketed prose poetry a little differently,
Mhm.
like, because sometimes editors will look at prose poetry, or they'll look at poetry and from a marketing standpoint, and it's easier kind of to put it in an anthology because it because it's not it just doesn't read like a traditional poem in that sense. So I mean, I guess that's I guess that's something I had done, or tried to do.
Yeah, you're a
And you've got
trailblazer, man. You got to rep, man. You're a trailblazer, man. You got to say it.
and I was going to bring it. You've got like little mini video movies of some of your poetry. You did readings, and then somebody else hassled you to do the reading, I believe, and then put it to like a little film.
I did. Oh, you did? Yeah. Oh, that's right.
Yeah, I can link it if you like.
It's been a long week.
So we are here with the spirit of Maxwell I Gold. The rest of him has left the building. How about you, Dachin? Because you are like kind of like very into the whole publishing world through Crystal Lake.
Yeah.
Do you have any suggestions for authors? Like, how would Crystal Lake like people to engage? Because of course, for the publishers, and the more the authors engage with social media and stuff, the easier it makes the publisher's job.
Yeah, we really like it when people are really promoting and out there putting their stuff out and everything. That's because it helps us as well as it helps them. And we also promote all our authors and everything with reviewers, and we have poetry reviewers and people who are interested in poetry. And usually Joe likes it when he's putting out, he likes to have people contact him when he's actually interested in putting out that kind of anthology or something. But a lot of times, sometimes you can email Joe and just ask him what he thinks. and he might be able to point you in another direction if he's not doing it himself, because we're all part of this indie horror world and indie dark poetry, indie publishing, and all the publishers know the other publishers. So if you want to just ask, that's a good thing. You can always ask. Joe's really nice about it.
Yeah. And a good point you bring up about indie, like we're all indies. Indie is independent. Of course, it means independent, like independently published, but it doesn't mean you have to be independent. And the greatest strength you have is your community, which right here, we have a community of all of you who took this class. And I think I think it was Pixie, I don't know, but I think somebody has already made like a Facebook group so everybody can stay in touch. And I'm going to say, like, that is the biggest key to success is when it's harder for us to share ourselves. Like, Colleen doesn't want to share Colleen, and Jamal doesn't want to share Jamal, and Maxwell, oh my God, like, try to get him to share something about himself. But when we share each other, it's a lot easier. I love talking about other people. And then when you're talking about, when we're all reciprocating, you wind up with a very massive, strong group. And I'm going to say that's the Unquiet Spirits group. There's like 21 authors in that, and then 4 in Tortured Willows, and then I want to say 7 in Black Cranes, and it stayed as a community, and it's a pretty powerful community now because we're constantly, not just with these projects that we're linked in, but sharing all the things that we're doing. And so that's basically what's been built here, is the same kind of group with all of you. So I kind of hope to see this group continue together like this and promoting poetry. And whatever else you want. You don't have to just promote poetry, I suppose. I mean, you can cheat if you want. Okay, Lionel asks, what are our thoughts on blackout poetry versus traditional poetry? I think that, I don't know why blackout poetry couldn't be considered traditional poetry. It's a newer tradition, but it's a pretty solid thing all on its own. I think it can be, like any poem, brilliant, or it can be sloppily and cheaply done, but like any poetry and writing, or art in general, or life in general. So what do you guys think? Blackout poetry, yes or no? Like thumbs up or?
I think with poetry, I think all poets, and I'm so in awe of you all because you don't think the same way as anybody else. You are in a different world from everybody else. You use words differently from everybody else. And like words are a medium too, like paint. It's like art. It's like reading Max's things it's amazing because it's like it opens your brain to another part of the world. And so I suppose blackout poetry is doing the same thing with a book. Like I can't remember what author it was, but she did like I think it was Mary Shelley or something, and she blacked out the words, and then she found the words of a poem in Frankenstein. It's and it's just doing that. It shows something amazing. It's like as a totally different perception. Mm-hmm. And that's why I'm so excited about this Exquisite Corpse tonight, because it's like part of a collective unconscious, because our lines are going to fit together, whether we like it or not.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I hope you like it, because otherwise the corpse wrangler gets in trouble.
Yeah.
Then you have to return the dirt to Edgar's grave.
Yeah, if you don't like it, I want my dirt back. Which is now your dirt, which was originally Edgar's dirt, but
I think a good thing like that, it's different from blackout. Obviously, it's like found poetry, like that book Foundlings that they did all nominated for the
and and was it Stephanie Ellis? I can't.
Yes, Stephanie Ellis.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought that was interesting. I had never seen that before, and it was amazing. Just being able to even look at another poet's words and to rearrange them into new forms and shapes, to create something new. I think that's just as important as blackout poetry or traditional poetry or any form. I think it's all needed. It's all good. And it's for everything,
one of my favorite blackout poems that I have ever read in my life came from this class. I want to say it was A. Frank's with Lust. I'm looking at my notes because, there's a lot of poems that ran through our heads the last 12 weeks, but I think it was A. Frank's did it. But it was perfect. Like what I would say I would like to see in a blackout poem, it was that,
Mm-hmm. Reanimated.
We got a lot going on in chat right now. So I will get to our next question. Our next question, unless anybody has anything to add to that. Okay. The next question is actually quite a good question, and probably take us the rest of the entire class because there will be arguing. No, I'm kidding. But as we all know, you're usually not rich when you write poetry, but there are ways to make money and to support your. Sorry, Max. I'm so sorry to crush all your dreams and hopes. What, we're supposed to do it for the love of it? Where's my Rolls Royce?
That's my Bentley.
And here I was going to take all my money to the bank and then go on a trip around the world, just from poetry.
Well, it is a small world after all, so.
Bah humbug.
That world, yeah, you can take that. You can afford a trip around that world. But there are ways to make money. I actually know a poet that supports himself through poetry very creatively, and I think that we all know him, and that is Brian Theowara. And he gave me some really good tips on it. And a lot of it is the grants and stuff. Kind of a different way of looking at it. When you do promote yourself as a poet, it's not just about the $25 you make for the poem, but when you're building that reputation and you're getting yourself out there and doing exposure, when you're volunteering, reading in libraries and schools, you wind up being able to apply for grants. And that could be like $50,000 for, I can't remember the name of it, but that big one. And then 15, 20, but he is so like great at that. Yeah, I actually we need to get him to do a class on how to apply for grants. I've won I think one grant in my life, and that was pretty cool. It was like the only one I've ever applied for, so see, you should apply.
And also for Canada, I've had several grants for writing, a Canada Council grant. It was more fiction, but yeah, it can go for either. And like there's BC, and like I'm in BC, so I got a BC Arts Council grant, and I got one for traveling, one to go to a convention, and different provinces have it. I know several of our people here in the workshop are from Canada, so definitely check it out. Some are beginning writer grants, some are mid-career grants, some are you just need to show body of work. So I always keep a list of everything I've ever published, the date, where it was published, the title, the editor, and for Canada access copyright, where you can get a measly little check twice a year for anything that's been published. They need to know how many pages, and you submit. So 2 years ago, I submit this year for what I published 2 years ago. And then it used to be big, like people used to get $800 twice a year, and now you get like $130. But better than a poke in the eye with a sharp stick.
Yeah. And with the free healthcare, you can afford to go get the eye with the sharp stick in it fixed.
And you don't have to mortgage your house or your little hovel on the side of the road because you're a poet and you can't afford a house.
Yeah, exactly. How about you guys? Can you think of any other ways that poets can support themselves? Really, creatives in general. I mean, there's a lot with social media now and teaching, and
you're like a teaching artist. The DLJ. If you get like a permit to teach at the DLJ, as a vendor, like a vendor permit, then you can do a whole thing with different classes in schools. They give you probably about anywhere from 500 a day to 1,000 a day. You could do that with films, or you could do that as a poet, or you could do that as a dancer, whatever it might be. You just go, you talk to the people at the school, and they usually have that money put to the side in a year, and they'll pay you it. You actually can make a decent amount of money with that. I've done that mainly with film, with like short film, where those even times where I probably made almost 40,000 in a year from doing that, you know. And you could do the same thing with writing or with the arts, you know. And then also too, I mean, a lot of times one of the major things that I think we mess up on as poets or artists is that we don't create mailing lists from the people who buy our books or who are fans. We don't create community, and community, making money is a community experience, is a community exercise. So one of the major things you want to do is create mailing lists, start using QR codes so that when people go, they put the information in, that you have the information, and you can constantly tell them what you're selling, what's up. There's also uh, what's it called? Patreon. Like you have a good
Mhm.
Patreon page that you can combine that with the community page, so you're constantly engaging your community. Take
Mhm.
videos, use social media, take videos of yourself. You don't gotta be fancy. You could just do videos of you reading a poem of the day
Mhm.
or something like that. People, you never know how you're touching people's lives, and people are they down to give you $5 here and there, but it adds up.
Mhm.
Over
Yeah.
time, you can be looking at an extra 600, couple of grand a month.
Mhm. Yeah, and there's Ko-fi too, which is like Patreon, but you can do a shop in it and all sorts of other things. But it's like a similar kind of platform.
Mhm. And the metaverse, look into the metaverse. They do all these weird, like, so this is weird too. There's something that I'm doing with merch. So there's also like merch. You could put like stanzas on shirts, on hats, or you can like sell merch in the metaverse to these clowns that got too much money to do, these tech clowns, and they just looking for anything to make their life feel like it's not hollow and empty.
Angela can
So
talk to that as well.
so you could, you could
Yeah.
go into the metaverse and build a store in the metaverse, and also even recite, have poetry slams in the metaverse.
Mhm.
A lot of people got a lot of money there, and they will give you money for no reason. Like, it's crazy. I'm trying to put y'all on
Yeah.
game. Like,
Are you talking about
yeah,
like second? Or are you talking about a different metaverse?
which one?
Second Life or a different metaverse? Because Second Life I
Thinking
thought was
Second
like
Life is a good one.
dead now, but really?
Yeah, no, they have a higher one. They have what's it called? It's like any of the places. It's the one where everybody meets. It's like the standard one.
Oh, like VR
That's
chat? Is it VR
no,
chat?
no,
I'm
it's not VR
curious.
chat.
I might have
I'll
to.
find it and I'll
Yeah,
put it in the
yeah.
group session. Go back
Okay,
on.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, because
guys
I
too.
love hanging out in the metaverse, but it's great for introverts, I'll say, because you can be like, hey, I don't even have to do my hair or get out of my pajamas, and I don't feel like talking to you anymore. Click, goodbye.
She tried to explain it to me, and I can't understand why people would buy virtual clothes and spend money on it. It just, my brain does not compute.
Colin, watch
And
the
they
movie.
spend thousands, Colleen. They spending
Mm,
hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars to have a house built. Or to buy virtual land. There's people paying 10,000, 15,000.
mm,
The people got way too much money for no reason. I'm trying to tell you, it's the new frontier. You can take all your poetry and your stuff over there, build your stuff, build a following there, community. The thing about it is that Americans don't really read that much, right? I'm just saying, in other countries, they value what we do a lot more. Like some countries think poetry is like almost like like the pinnacle of art, like sculpture. So if you talking to people like that, the metaverse, it closes all distances. It brings people from all over the world together. So you have access to all these different markets, these new people from different markets, different territories, and if they love your stuff, it could just blow up in those other places. So something to think about.
So I'm gonna just be the contrarian just cause, but like, um,
I
I think
can't
also
mute you.
This
I'm so
month to take the out of the room.
um, I think like where is this metaverse? Wherever you want it to be. Watch Ready Player One. That is the future. Which was the book, and in the book it's actually based out of Columbus, Ohio, which is terrifying.
Oh,
The company that the villains IOI is supposed to be based off of Worthington Industries, which is based in Columbus, Ohio. Terrifying. Anyway, but like I think something else that I think about when I don't know, when we talk about money, when we talk about like money and payment for poetry in general, like these are all good things to consider, especially Arts Council grants, local foundations as well. But like, you know, it all goes back to the why. Like why are you doing it? Like obviously, I would never tell anyone to go into poetry for money.
No.
Or I would never tell anyone to go into writing for money. I mean,
unless you didn't like them.
right? like I always had a 9 to 5 job, and I just wrote because I loved it, and that's why like I'm not saying I don't care if I get paid. I obviously want to get paid, but like I wasn't like the payment for the payment for me wasn't always a driving factor.
Mhm.
But I think I don't know. Like it's all for me. It's always the why. Like why am I writing for this market? Why am I writing this poem? Like I just wrote another poem for a Weird Fiction Quarterly. It's a small little thing. I think I'll only get paid $5 for it, but like it's fun. Like Nora B, PV, and Sarah Walker and a few other people put it together. But it's just a fun little magazine. Like I did it because I wanted to. So yeah.
I don't think you're being contrary by saying that. I think you're right. I'm just saying if you do want to try to make some profit off of it, those are just avenues where you can experiment and have fun, play around with it. But I don't think you should do this for money. I don't. There's no way I think you should do this for money. You know what I mean? You got to be insane or delusional to do that.
Well, we are poets, so there's that.
Yeah, there's very few poets that actually make a living off of their poetry.
Yeah,
Extremely, even fewer than fiction writers.
Yeah.
I do want to say though, I do believe that it's us that sets the expectation. I mean, not saying that poetry will ever be, a fortune, but when we don't treat ourselves like professionals, we devalue our work going forward for other people. So us creating that standard of professionalism, I think, is key. And I know a lot of people will be like, oh, it's just poetry. It's still literature. I mean, we need to always keep it to this high standard. What we're capable of, not putting a standard on somebody else's work, but our best that we can do, because poetry is also very subjective. And what I may not like, or, somebody else may totally love, and vice versa. So, all right. Anybody else have anything on that? That's a good discussion.
Yeah.
Now everybody's like, right now, everybody's on Facebook bugging Brian Theowara. How do you make money with grants? Don't mention that I told you that. This is something we touched on a little bit in the very beginning of this session, talking about rejection, interpreting rejection letters, how to navigate them. When should you consider revising based on the feedback you're getting versus staying true with your original work? And I'm going to say, I feel like it is something that you have to figure out with that project. Like you have to reason with that project. Is this really something that I should respond to? Like this is like, I'll use notching as an example. I just wrote a terrible Sherlock Holmes story, and she gave me a lot of suggestions with it. And that was where I'm like, yes, notching is correct. I definitely need to listen to notching about all the things that she just said. On the flip side, I had bittersweets, and I had somebody who I really won't name, I believe, said that that gives a terrible story, and like I shouldn't publish it because it was unreasonable. And I did publish it, and that did pretty good. So like sometimes you really have to judge and be honest with yourself about if you're going to listen or not. And then about rejection, I always like to point out the cards are stacked against us. There's so much competition. Space and Time magazine will get like 500 to 600 submissions every issue, and we can take 5 fiction and maybe 10 poems, and we usually bump that up and stretch that and go over budget, as I well know, every single time, and that's the max that we can take. So every rejection does not mean that that's a terrible story or a terrible poem. It means, oh my God, we need more money. So, we need more paper. There's just not enough paper and space and money for all the beautiful work that's out there. So like, that's where promoting yourself and getting yourself out there really pays off, because your beautiful work can then get an audience because you're already being seen. So
yeah,
that's my 2 cents. What do you guys think?
I mean, for me personally, I just feel like sometimes when I put something out, there's like this doubt I have about it, or I feel like it's not doing something. And if somebody else confirms it, they send it back with that same hidden secret that I feel like, then I know that it's true. I'm like, oh shit, they saw it too. Oh, that's not all the time, but like that's one of the ways that I do it. Another way is that I try to set it down for a while and then go back to it when my perspective shifts a little bit, or when I have time away from it. And then if I see that with their suggestions, I always take in people's suggestions, but I don't believe any of it, or their compliments too. I consider it, but I don't believe it until there's evidence. So I'll go look for the evidence in the work, and if I can't find it, I'll leave it alone. But if I do find it, then I'll go to work.
So poetry is far more subjective than fiction. I mean,
Yes.
I think I think there's a little more of a formula with fiction, that you can say a story is formulaically good or bad. I mean,
Mhm.
poetry, you like, the one person can read it and say it's the next, I don't know, the next Ray Bradbury, and then the next person can read it and say this is garbage. I mean, and they could both be of equal scholarship and ability. So it just, I think, and without any sort of formulaic opinion. I think there's also a little bit of just knowing certain markets. Like I've sent a poem. I've been trying to get poems into Dreams and Nightmares probably for the last 6 years, um, and all of those
Mm.
poems have ended up somewhere else, and I haven't edited any of those poems at all. One of those poems got into uh, Playlist of the Damned. Um, so um, so it's complete. It's night and day. I think sometimes with poems and editors and their tastes for certain things. Um, some, I think some markets may be looking for very very specific things that you have no control over. You have no idea. Like they could tell you, they can say their guidelines. We want, we want something that is quiet and disturbing and dark. Um, you know, um, and then you don't know what that means. That that editor's definition of disturbing could be you know you could
Splatter
torture.
punk.
Yeah, you could torture yourself on what that definition of disturbing was. Um I wouldn't necessarily, like, I would go through like maybe 2 or 3 rejections of a poem um before I send it off. And sometimes I don't even edit it. Sometimes I just keep sending it before it until it gets accepted. Um Depending on the poem. Um you know.
That's a good point about you don't know what the editors are looking for, which is a good reason to follow them sometimes and see, because a lot of times they will say it on their social media, or they'll be upfront, or you can ask them.
Mhm.
And sometimes that's weird things.
Yeah, like I remember Lee Murray came out and said that she read the entire backlog of some of these publishers to see what they wanted.
Mhm.
So if you're wanting to get published in poetry, look at what they're publishing.
Yeah, and that is, people, like publishers will like will say that, and I know some people kind of like, I don't know, scoff at it. There, when publishers will say like, please read our back issues. Read the back issues. It does it does give you a better idea. It doesn't mean you'll necessarily get in immediately, but it does give you a sense of their tone sometimes. And then you could read it and be like, oh, this is not my style at all. I was just
I was going to say, like, for me, I like shorter because it means you can publish more people. And that's a weird thing. It's not a thing on the poetry or the stories at all. It just means I can get 2 for 1 in there.
Yeah.
So
I became a slush reader for Crystal Lake. I started out as an intern, and I read what the slush and found out what they liked, and that's how I got published. I actually got a story published. Joe's like, "Congratulations! I didn't even know you did this."
That's so funny.
Yeah,
and that's also a good point is slush reading, because even later in my career, when I started reading slush for Space and Time, I found out all kinds of things. Like, I will confess, I actually didn't really know what Shun formatting was, or at least I never really did it. I kind of didn't think it was important until I was on the other end of it. And oh my God, do not send us anything. Don't send anything that's not Shun formatting. I'm going to say that because there's reasons for it. But yeah, so I learned that by seeing, other people's work.
Because sometimes also, depending on the publication you're sending it to, the first readers may not have ever read poetry before. I mean, so they obviously say they accept poetry, for example, but like you may get a first reader that's like, who's Allen Ginsberg? What's this? Like, this
doesn't rhyme.
Roses are red, violets are orange. What? Like,
it's not how it goes. All right, we actually have a question. Let me scroll way up there. Okay, so this is a question that comes up a lot, and it's basically when publishers say unpublished, but you've already put it on social media, and that is, I vary up to the publisher. Some count that, some don't. Some consider your blog publishing, some don't. So I would say you have to ask. But if it's something that you love, don't tease it. Put a little bit on social media, but don't publish the whole thing anywhere.
My personal advice is to never. I would never publish. I would never put any of my poetry up on social media unless it was published by someone.
Or you're giving it away. Like, I'm doing this on purpose, like that Midjourney poetry collaboration thing. I was doing that as a throwaway, not throwaway, but that's not going anywhere. Anybody else have anything on that? I'm like running through all these comments now. Everybody is very active on that topic from Pixie.
It's about the same question.
What runs your right to sell first North American rights? Again, it just depends on the publisher, what they count as a first publishing thing.
Yeah. I would just never put a poem up on your Facebook or your blog, or like if it's something that you want to publish, or you want to put in a collection, or you want to do that, don't put it on.
Yeah. I would agree with that. I share a lot of stuff on my blog, but if it's a poem that I actually do want to sell, or I'm writing it for a project, like a request, it doesn't get shared. I'll talk about it, or maybe share like a line or two, but I won't share the whole thing. Colleen, you had something to say on that, I know.
I'm so quiet.
Well, she piped up for a second, and I think we said something else.
Yeah, it's just I've got there's lots of traffic today, so it's super noisy on this street. I think most publishers, if you're posting something on a blog, your poem, your story, or you're putting it out in some social media like on Facebook, it's published. A few might not decide on that. You cannot copyright an idea, and you cannot have a poem or a story negated if you just put the idea out there. So you can say, I'm going to write a poem about a frog dancing with an elephant on Mars. That's fine. Like there could be 10 people doing that.
I'm doing
So
that now.
doesn't-
Nobody do that. That's mine. That's
Yes.
mine.
Yeah.
I'm doing that.
So in fact, yeah, you can, but yeah, there has been some discussion, and if I'm batting at things, it's not because I'm going crazy. There is a fly flying around here. There's been discussion about whether if you do a poetry reading of an unpublished poem, if that makes it published, if it's done on a podcast that isn't to a local group. And I think somebody asked about Codex and that. Codex is a closed members forum. So anything that's a closed members forum, you're not publishing it out there to the world. It's closed. You have to have a member. So that would not be considered published in that sense.
Yeah, the key is how available it is.
Yeah. But I think overall, like people doing a reading, overall it's not published, but I think there's a gray area there that entertainment lawyers probably make their money off of.
Yeah, ET brought up a point. I was thinking about this as well. That if it's archived and it is publicly available, she said it may be considered first publication. I think the moral of the story is if you have something that is unpublished and you wish to publish it at some point in a collection, just don't share it unless it's in like a closed group or something like that. I mean, like I said, I try to, I don't share unpublished stuff anyway because to me it's not ready. It's not ready until I submit it or until it's published. That's something I learned from Linda. I don't share anything that's unpublished because to me, if it's unpublished, it's still in draft phase, and I don't want to share it with anybody.
Yeah, I think that, and this is my opinion, like not an expert, but if you do read it at a reading, I would not count that as published, even if it was available, because that's not the written word. Because you go into audio rights and, I can't think of any other kind of rights. Audio rights, translation rights, first American, first North American, first worldwide.
I think we should have a caveat to this whole thing that if you have an entertainment attorney, consult them because none of us.
Yeah, that's true. I did say I'm not an expert. And also it is up to the publisher. Every publisher considers stuff differently and cares more or less. What if we only have unpublished stuff and we read for HWA? In that case, you can, like, I think we talked about like not throwaway work, but work that you have built for publication to get your name out. And then that's what I would perform. And then you have your stuff that you want to publish later. In the beginning,
but I still wouldn't worry about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't worry about reading it. Most people aren't going to be taking your audio rights anyways.
Yeah, especially for a poem.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, everything you have is unpublished. How are you supposed to get yourself out there? And frack. She was saying that to something somebody said. No. We're actually almost out of time. Good grief.
Oh wow, that's great.
Yeah, we still have the
corpse.
Yeah, the corpse. I don't know. I'm like open mic poetry jam. Wait, what is it that we're doing? So we still have the corpse to share, and I wanted to give Notching some time to talk about the anthology that's coming up. I'm like, where do we all go from here? Yes, and keep an eye on. It's really helpful if you look at your contract and then you see when is that work going to become available again, and you can mark it in your Google Calendar. So when it becomes available again, you're like, oh, I know I can resell that story, and you can throw it all in a folder story or poem. You can throw it in a folder, and then you can release a collection later, or just resell it. So,
and by the way, you aren't going to get contracts for poems all the time. Sometimes it's going to be, hey, we want to publish your poem. We're going to send you $10. That will be your contract. Just keep those emails. But really, it's like some of them say, when you submit, you agree to that if we buy your poem, it will be first world rights, whatever. So you have to also read what's on the website. But some places are very informal, especially when it comes to poetry.
Mm-hmm. So, now, Ching, do you want to talk about the showcase? I'm sorry, not the showcase. I'm like, which publication are we on? Yeah, it is a showcase.
Yes, our Whispers from Beyond, our dark poetry. We want only dark poetry for this one. What we'll be doing is the instructors will choose from your 3 corrected poems that you will be turning in. Everybody who hasn't finished and got their critiques, they can have them in by the 7th, and that's it. There won't be any more just critiques after the 7th. After the 7th, we want only corrected poems. And then, like I said, the instructors will choose from those 3. They might choose more than one. They might like one. They might choose more than one. Each of the instructors is going to have their own way of looking at things, their own way of seeing things. Some may be doing it on form. Some may be doing it on your emotion and how you've communicated your experience. But you're going to be getting a contract for this. It's for your rights. There's no payment on this anthology. But it is our showcase. It is our way of thanking you for taking this class. And we are so happy that you did. We want to show off what you've done. We want everyone to see how well you've done and what you've accomplished and how you've had fun with your instructors.
Matching, will people get a copy of the?
Yes, I believe so. I will have to talk to Joe. I think it will probably be an electronic copy for sure. I'm not sure about print copies yet. That is something I'll have to ask him.
So very cool. Like, I'm very excited to see this. And I think the plan is to have it out by Christmas.
Yes.
Okay? I wanted to make sure I am not misquoting anything.
Yep, we're looking to get it out by Christmas, by December. We're working on the cover now, and I'll be revealing that in the Facebook group when it is completed, so everybody can see what it looks like.
Very cool. All right. Does anybody have any questions on that? KT says this is a great cap to the journey, and I agree.
Yeah, it is.
I just want to add, because it looks like Pixie might be hung up a bit on the fact that she read a couple of her best poems at the HWA reading.
Oh, yeah.
Don't worry about it, Pixie. Still submit.
And I would say that's not published. I would not consider that published. I don't know a publisher that would consider that as published, that you read it at an open mic event, because that's a performance venue. Nobody can go and read that, or I mean, I guess you can share the video, but it's like in a group thing. Generally, I think that readings are fine. Like, nobody cares.
Mm-hmm.
And Amy asks, who is the cover artist?
I don't know yet, Amy. It's going to be an exciting reveal.
It could be me. I'm going to go apply now. I can make stick figures.
Angela, remember the word no.
Diane. Yeah. Oh, I've been saying so many no's lately, which is why I'm catching up to my work finally. Diane asked, what if the reading is recorded? Again, that's recording is not published. I mean, in my mind, published means these are the words on the page. It's on a blog. You posted it through Twitter. Remember the Twitter poetry? Where you would do a verse and then everybody, like, that to me is published. Even the Twitter thing is kind of like, I really wouldn't count that. But I think it generally what they mean is, can somebody go find this and read it, because they want the first publication rights to it. And honestly, yeah, I'll keep my opinions to myself on that.
Why start now?
At the end, right?
Yeah, this is it. Thank you, Chris. This has been an awesome, fun event for all of us, and you guys have been as inspiring as hopefully we've been.
Yeah, you've been great.
Yeah,
really great.
I hope you guys have had fun. I hope you've enjoyed I mean, you have some great teachers here. We're doing Wayne's World here. We're not worthy.
You're
Thank
all more than worthy. Let's read the
So-
corpse.
All right, let's do the corpse because right now we're just sitting here letting everybody tell us how wonderful we are, which I mean isn't like a bad thing, but
I enjoy it. I enjoy it.
All right. Well, we have the corpse ready. It is alive. We are going to all read it, and everybody has a part. So, and I don't know if you saw the message. I did put that first line as blue. So you're starting, Colleen.
I did see that. So, Angela, did you want to say the title?
Yes, I will say the title. It is Corpse Whispers. I had to think really, really hard for that. But I will say about this, I always love seeing how a corpse goes together because nobody knew what anybody's posting, like how these are going to work. There's no plan. It's just utter chaos of lines coming in. And yes, and you all got my accidental chaos. I sent out where I keep all the notes just as a backup in case I get confused and misplace something. That's pretty much what it looks like, chaos. And then you got the nicer one. But yeah, it's just a lot of fun. And it's amazing how they work together. I kind of think that Exquisite Corpses must be some kind of community magic. So, but with that, Colleen, would you be so good as to start us off?
All right. And hopefully the cars won't drown it out. Dancing to the music of a lone cricket chirping. Billowing fog dances around me. I watch as the ships slowly drift out into the abyss. The call of the void beckons me. Her words wrap around my soul and pull me into everlasting darkness. Unsung songs hang in the air like timid ghosts. Silver susurrations. Alexa got in the way. Unsung songs hang in the air like timid ghosts. Silver susurrations disrupt the silence. Sighs devour obsidian seams. I dreamed to sever the sky. A cackle of lilies strike in the cold. Their fetid flushes unfurl upon me.
Skin dissolves. The mumble of myself dissipates. White noise cloaks the sine wave of the heart. But how the corks spin topwise at one end of the universe and the other, faster than light, breaking the speed limit of corporeality. The voice calls out, words trite yet true, heartbreak of old rising up from the darkest hue. Throw the tea and apple, spear and oar, the stapled ears at the knotty pine to silence the sibilance. Click, clack, click, clack, ghostly needles knit our shroud.
These fierce vibrations wound the frightening. A breeze beyond the grave suffused with fading sounds of suffering. The susurrant hush, dissonant quiet sweeping through the cemetery. Nose open to the breeze. I catch the delectable scent of your liver. Perhaps we'll all be more temperate, toit and tender when we wither down to bones.
One thing I will keep to remember, echoes of souls lost in our sight. Their cries interweave a requiem of night.
That is beautiful. You guys did such a good job. I want everybody here to give yourself a huge, huge applause. And I'm going to end this by saying the most important thing you can do to get yourself out there is to keep learning stuff, which all of you have done, to always get out of your comfort zone and to constantly challenge yourself. And awesome kudos to everybody in this class, including you guys.
And one day you guys will be teaching this class.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, and then we'll be taking your class, and you'll be saying the same things that we have. It's like, why are you taking this class? You don't need this.
And keep writing, keep writing, keep writing.
Submit.
Yep.
Don't worry about rejection. Thank you all so much. Everybody.
Yeah. Do you guys want to, because this is like our last one, do you want to say a little bit about where people can find you? I mean, because we're not going to be here next week. I mean, we're still here kind of because we're, going to be doing the anthology, but you guys want to do that? Like everybody talk a little bit about where people can find you and.
Well, you can find me at www.writerhodge.com. You can find me in your local X-rated shop when I was younger. But
In the back section.
Come on.
I'm
Just
also
send us the tapes now.
on Instagram as Director H, or on Facebook as Jamal Hodge.
You can find me at thewellsoftheweird.com, and I'm on Instagram at CyberGodWrites. Maybe one day I'll actually, use my website, but it's generally updated for the most part. But yeah.
And of course, you can find me on Facebook. I popped into the group a couple times and chatted. Also, you can find me at the SFPA. You can always email the president's address, which just look up SFPA. You can also send a little telepathic message. They might get it. And I'm on WordPress blog, ColleenAnderson.wordpress.com, which it's still, I've been saying, yes, I'm going to get it up to date. And I did one new post in June and I'm lagging still, but I'm going to try. That's where I am.
I'll actually update the description with these links, hopefully. Like I'm going to try to do that like soon-ish. How about Nachi? Do you want to close us?
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody for taking this course and for you for teaching it. And I'm so glad you were all part of this, and I hope to see you again down the road. And we want to see you get submitting to us. Submit to Crystal Lake. Thank you for coming.
All right.
Thank
I
you,
guess
guys.
that's it. I'm gonna get emotional now. Bye, everybody.